Welcome back. It's all smiles. It's a Friday afternoon, and I'm joined by Brian Degnan and Lawrence Conley. There is loads to talk about. Just when you're setting yourself up for a pre-derby bulletin, Lawrence, Ange pulls another one out the bag. We spoke about Tomoki Iwata during the week. He has joined. He's joined the club. He's joined the Ange Revolution. What's your initial reactions to this?
Best player in the Japanese league? What? I think we know a lot more about Japanese players than we did 18 months or so ago. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got to be over the moon. We've managed to get the best player out of their league. Ange seems to certainly know him. We know there'll be a few players we expect to move on from that kind of number 6 position. Mm-hmm. Robertson, it just doesn't look to work for him. I don't think he's let us down any time he came in. He had a couple of good loan spells. So it just doesn't seem to be the right time for him. Gucci's been unlucky with injuries. And I think, Abelgard was here for a year. Well, I don't know, 6 months into that, and we've not seen a lot of him, have we? Seen a bit
made an impact.
Share gas, so I think he'll be sent back.
That was an 80s reference there, Lawrence, for anybody younger than in their early 40s. Shergar was... Tell us.
It was a wonderful horse that went missing. I don't know who kidnapped him. I don't know.
Who knows? Something who will remain in the past, like various other things who went missing without a trace. Now, Tomoki Iwata, Brian, what do we know about him? So Celtic have confirmed, as Lawrence says, that we've signed the Japanese Player of the Year. He's just won the league, actually, with Ange's former club. Ange signed him for Yokohama F. Marinos. And this is a loan deal, very similar to the Daizen Maeda loan deal with a compulsory purchase clause. Reported to be 830,000 quid. If you can buy the best player in Japan for 830 grand, did I say 830 quid? 830 grand, then, there's only so many times you can go back to that well until it's saturated. That's about my only concern with this, Brian.
Yeah, I suppose that's a concern, but I don't think they're anywhere near that stage yet. I think what they've discovered, though, is you can get players like Rio Hikati for £1.5 million, something like that. Daizen Maeda was pennies, and then this guy, the best player in Japan, we're getting for under £1 million. It's just great business. I think I was reading a quote for Ange from when he signed him from his previous club to Marinos, and he said the reason he signed him was he was incredibly strong, incredibly aggressive, really good at turning defence into attack. His ball transition was really, really good. He can play centre half, centre mid, right back. It just seems every part, the type of player you want in the team around, what we're missing. And I've spoke before about how I think there's no one in the squad just now can do what McGregor does in terms of how he turns defence into attack. The fluidity, it looks like Iwata's in that mould. So it's just a brilliant signing. I think, Iriguchi's probably off. As Lawrence said, it's not really worked out for him. Scott Robertson's not featured at all, so he's unlikely to feature anytime soon. Abelgard's contracts apparently get ripped up as well. So you've got a replacement number 6 there. So it just shows that Ange is right on it. He's doing his business right. He's doing it quick. He's identifying key areas. And as you say, if we can get a player of this calibre for that amount of money, and it's a player that Ange knows well, so we trust Ange's judgment, it's an absolute brilliant signing. And the most important of all, and I still can't quite believe it, we've got 3 signings in for the January transfer window, and it's not even January yet.
Yep, again.
That's unheard of for Celtic. Even last season, I thought, this is amazing. I wonder if this is just a one-off thing, if it's going to happen. And he's done it again. He's identified where we need work. He's got his players in. They all seem like exciting players. It's just absolute brilliant business. And credit has to go to the people above as well, Michael Nicholson, etc., for backing him and trusting his judgment and getting it done. It's great stuff.
It is. If you heard my phone there, that's because obviously Acsom is a multi-layered company with dozens of staff, which means that obviously I'm sitting here on my own doing the social media as well as doing the live bulletin. Don't believe the hype. We never stop. So January this year, we had 3 bodies in, and then we added Matt O'Reilly, and then the January we're going into, we've done exactly the same. The way that we're approaching recruitment, it has been absolutely sensational. And people can nitpick and say that there's been a few signings that haven't worked out. Of course there has. You show me a manager who has got a flawless record in the transfer market. I'll tell you what, Ange does have a much better ratio than most managers that went before. We don't see the millions going out to players who are project signings. We've just not been seeing that. And the point you made there, Brian, in terms of the actual value for money. So we brought in a 25-year-old who can play in defence or in midfield. He's a key number 6, I think, addition. 4 caps already for Japan. As I say, I mean, the actual fee is going to be 830 grand, which is tremendous. And if you look at these signings, right, you look at the players here. Rio Hatate, Ideguchi, Matt O'Reilly, Joe Hart, Kobayashi, Maeda, Haksabanovic and Iwata, right? And you look at the combined transfer fees for those players, and I know they're not all coming from the Japanese league, so obviously, 8.9 million quid, which is an average of £1.1 million per player. Now, Lawrence, you talk about recruitment, you talk about a strategy, that's all fair and well, but look at the value for money. And I mean, yes, there's maybe 1 or 2 players there with no resale value, either due to their age or indeed the fact that they've not played enough since they came to Celtic, Ideguchi being the main example of that. But in terms of their transfer market value right now, Lawrence, it's potentially tenfold. Unbelievable bit of business.
What you're looking at is that they almost cost what Edward cost. But Edward obviously came with, we owed a percentage of him when we sold him on. So what did we bring in for Edward and what would we bring in for these players? It's crazy to look at it that way, just how much more it's worth. And the players without, a sell-on value, I don't think we're freeing Gucci. I think there's teams interested. We won't make money on him, but
make your money back. Yeah.
But we're not losing a lot on him either. So we may end up losing, $500,000 on him or whatever, but it's not the fortunes. Geez, we used to give that away on loan fees for players from the EPL that would never be our players. Times you would doubt their commitment when they were playing. I don't think you can ever say that about any Ange's signings. That he seems to get guys with character. We don't doubt their commitment. So some of them haven't made it.
It's a bit like Acsom, Lawrence. We need people with character. It's all about the character and the morals of our team members. And obviously they need to fit. They need to fit.
You perhaps don't need to be a character. Mickey Mouse is a character, but I don't know if you let him on. But having character is different. Is that Pulp Fiction or something? I don't know. But so some of them haven't made it, like Gucci, because the other signings that have come in midfield are filling in places that Gucci could have perhaps taken up. Look at O'Reilly being dropped back to the deep lying playmaker. So
exactly.
Yeah. So if you're bringing 2 players in that don't cost a lot and one of them makes it, and kind of, they should say it's about 10 times his value now. What would you get for O'Reilly now?
I know.
You can afford to get half your money back on the other one. It's definitely work a lot better. And I think it is, you said, we never stop, but Ange was speaking about that. He never stops looking for players that can improve the team. He's relentless. Mm-hmm. And I think that was right through his football. It's not just on the park, is it? It's through everything he does. I know he's working Tosh hard out there. That Shamrock zipper of Tosh's will be flying all over the world as he scouts players. So, it's just...
You need to get on one of the scouts jackets that you used to see when you were playing for the school, Lawrence, and there was always a guy in a long trench coat and you instantly thought he was a scout. He might not have been a scout. But we need to get him a big Shamrock bubble jacket for his travails.
Could get scout in the back, just
Absolutely. Which reminds me, I've still got one of your trackies here at the studio, so let's make sure you get that in the new year. It does raise the question. There's been certain moments, I guess, when with McGregor's injury, Brian. If Abel Gar was to get that run of games, or if Ideguchi was to resurrect his Celtic career, or indeed, I think the timing was wrong for McCarthy with regards to his own fitness at that point. But if they were going to have a career at Celtic, that was the moment, wasn't it, when McGregor was injured, and what Ange did at that point is he moved O'Reilly into a slightly different position in midfield. And I think O'Reilly totally relished that. He relished the change. But I've been complaining, maybe is the wrong word, but I've been mentioning quite a few times the fact that O'Reilly has not scored this season. And he came close a couple of times at Easter Road. But you've got to caveat that by saying that he was playing in a deeper role for a spell for a spell. So I think that, you know, the signal was there, I reckon, that these two players that I've just mentioned, Aboga and Ideguchi, their futures were really in doubt when that opportunity arose, and instead of bringing one of them in, he's pulled O'Reilly back. Do you think that spells the end? Is it going to be a situation, Brian, because we know Ange is ruthless, is it going to be 1 in 3 out even? And I'm not talking about Robertson, I mean James McCarthy, Ideguchi, Abelgar. Is it going to be a scenario where we bring in the new man and it allows us to... Listen, I'm not going to call them deadwood. They're all very good footballers, right? And I'm sure they're very professional as well at their craft, but they're not contributing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, what you got to love about Ange, and Lawrence touched on it there, he's bringing these players in when he sees an opportunity, which means the players that are there in that position need to either step up or step out. That's his... I get the impression, I don't think he cares a jot how popular a player is. Mm-hmm. If someone comes in, if Iwata comes in and he's absolutely killing it at training, he gets a chance and he's absolutely sensational, he's not going to just put Cal McGregor in for the sake of it. Cal McGregor's got to step up and make sure he's still the one in charge. You saw the difference with Taylor when they brought in Bernabei. Everyone thought Bernabei was going to start now.
Yes. Taylor
stepped right up. And he's that aggression filters through the squad. That's what you need. And I think it's really important in terms of players going out. Yeah, I think Ange, one of the things I've been really critical of in the past is Celtic sort of stockpiling players, especially younger players. I just don't see why. It's just a waste of time. And I think Ange is a case where he's like, look, you're not going to feature, get somebody else that is going to feature. Best of luck on your way. It's like when he said before, he was asked about keeping players happy. And he said, it's not my job to make them happy. If they're not happy out there playing in this kit in front of 60,000 people, go somewhere and find happiness elsewhere. And I love that from him because he's such a ruthless obsession with success. And the way he's going to get that is bring the best players in who are playing the best at that time. And if you're not up to that, and you're going to throw your dummies out, or you're not interested in playing, you're going to move on. And just going back, talking about sell-on values of players, we talked about you mentioned the players there for like 8 point whatever million it was, all those players in, right? Massive sell-on values. But even look at the players that they spent money on. Look at Kyogo. Kyogo, if they get sold, will go for good money. Jota and Carter Vickers, they're comfortably going to make their money back. You know, I still want to make a very good profit on these players. And you look at potentially Juranovic for what was it, 3 million, 3.2 million or something it was. We're looking at maybe 25 million selling him in the space of 18 months. It's incredible transfer business, and it is business. And I know you said, Paul, earlier that, you know, we don't do this project player thing. I think I would disagree. I think we still do. We just do it better. I think Kobayashi is probably a project player. I think we bring him in, try and develop him. He'll go. I think Iwata might be as well. I think Bernabei probably is. But I think they fit the system. They're the type of people you want at the club, and are very, very good players. And that's the difference. We're still doing a similar thing, just doing it, the best version of it. And it really is incredible. And then just one final thing on O'Reilly. I think you were right. I think I said it at the time when he could drop back into the deeper role. I thought, well, if you're Abelgard or Ideguchi or McCarthy or Robertson, that's you done. Because if you're shifting players at a position, they fill that role, you're not going to get a game. That's the reality. And I think it's naive if you think otherwise. If you think, oh, well, I'll bide my time. It's like, no. If somebody's filling in your position, that isn't their position, it's time to go. A few people got a wee bit upset because I said Kyogo had been out of form, which he had been. So, but so's O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly was poor the other night against Hibs. And actually, I think O'Reilly done quite well in the deeper role. I don't think since he's moved back in his position, I don't think he's quite hit the heights. And the lack of goals is a concern for me as well, because he's had a lot of opportunities. So while I love him as the nose, I think it's brilliant. He's not been in great form either. So it'll be interesting if maybe Ange looks to sign another sort of attacking player, or he drops to the bench now, and maybe Mooy starts in his place, because he was excellent against Hibs.
He was. There's going to be some dilemmas that we'll talk about in terms of selection at Ibrox. I'm bringing in Sean, just as you were talking about Greg Taylor. I brought up Sean Thompson, who's watching on the YouTube channel. We've just hit 10.5 million views on the channel, which is unbelievable when you consider, I'm looking up at my board here, my eyesight's that bad, I can't see the figures, but I think it was July 2020 is when we started uploading Acsom content onto the channel. So the channel's been running for 2.5 years. We've hit 10.5 million views if you're watching, subscribe and hit the big bell, because it will notify you every time a bit of Celtic content goes on the channel. In 2023 and beyond, everything we put on there is going to be exclusively Celtic related. So everything else we do will be elsewhere. Sean Thompson, afternoon, was a bit concerned when Taylor went down the other night, but just bumped into him at Braehead and he seems fine. Needs our best players for Monday. Thanks for the update, Sean. Had we not got that, we would need to have asked Declan, who I'm sure was out for a coffee with him earlier on this week. Jungle Lion, great to get all these players in early and not the 31st of January. What tends to happen if you bring them in late is panic sets in. And that's when the in terms of a vision or your focus is waylaid. If you look at what we've just been talking about, Lawrence, how big a part of that, Brian thinks the strategy and the approach is the same, we're doing it better. How big a part of that do you think is the fact that Ange has more control over the actual players coming in?
So I think Brian's right. The overarching strategy is, everyone's a project player. It's a business. Come to Celtic, put yourself in the shop window, we'll develop you. Someone big's come in, so we'll get a huge offer, we'll sell you on, move on. I think Ange is more focused in the implementation of it. He's more certain in the type of player he wants. I think he probably uses more data, and he's got guys scouting the leagues out there saying, if you get a player that hits these data points, I want to see the videos on him. I want him scouted because he fits my system. Mm-hmm. Previous managers, they kind of played a number of systems, so they were looking for players that could fit a number of systems, which costs you a bit more money if they're going to be good at a number of systems. We only need players that are good at one system. That's all I just said. It's just these data points, good at this system, and it works for me. Mm-hmm. Other managers are going, well, I want to play this system then, and I'll change it to this. So I need guys that can play a few different. Me and Ronnie used to talk about that. They need to learn one system first. Once I've learned that, I'll teach them another system. I think Ange's maybe just make it really simple for them, just learn this system. Just do what I tell you. It'll work. We won't concede a lot of chances for open play. We'll create loads of chances. And if we take a fair percentage of them, we should win our games. Mm-hmm. And, it's working so far, 17 out of 18. But, I think the identification of players is easy because he's so focused on what he wants. It is players that can just play that style and fit in and hit those data points. Which makes it's going to make it easier for the guys that are drawn up the list to be scouted, saying, right, these guys fit that, they could play this style. Mm-hmm. And, they say to the coaching team, go and have a look at them.
Absolutely.
And Perth on a Wednesday night or whatever, I don't know.
In your shamrock jacket. And the thing is, though, Lawrence, that's when players like Albugar then become almost quite bemusing to me, because he doesn't have that attacking play or the skills or the attributes to turn defence and transition it into attack. I think the defensive plays there. So that there are one or two players who have come in and you question it. Is that a player that fits the system? And again, it's not an exact science. This is the thing. I think, Ange, like many managers, have embraced data, but if it was an exact science, you wouldn't even have to kick a ball. You could just do it as like a computer game. Right, my team will beat your team, will no bother. There's no exact science to it, but there are players who are obviously suited to Ange's team, and he will then check if they've got the right character and philosophy for that as well. And there's other players that we've got who will be brilliantly suited to other teams, and that's why I think players like Stephen Welsh continually come up on the radar of other clubs all over the country and beyond. Now, if there was one player, Brian, out of the three that we've been talking about here, and James McCarthy, Ideguchi and Abelgar, that you think will actually have a Celtic career beyond this January, who's that player going to be?
So, pragmatically, McCarthy probably, just because I think he doesn't seem to have ambitions of moving anywhere. I think he'd be quite content to train and then play when called upon. I think Ideguchi, I've said a number of times before, the guy's also a good player, but I don't know what type of player he is. I don't know enough about him. I don't know where he fits in the team. He's never really made an impression for me. At least McCarthy's got a very defined role. And I still think, if there's because even though we've got Iwata is covered from McGregor, if there's an injury crisis, it's still good to have that third option. And I think McCarthy will be it. Abelgard, I would imagine, is probably off. I think there's talk his contract's getting ripped up in January. So, but I mean, he's a very good player, Danish international. And this is the thing, I think you said earlier, Paul. These guys are all good footballers. You don't go to Celtic and if you're a bad footballer. You just don't. It's just sometimes your face doesn't fit. Sometimes, Abelgard's really, really good in that role. But the way that was at Celtic isn't quite just a ball winner. You have to be like a transition player. You have to make sure you turn the best into attack. And it's such a very distinctive role within that it's hard to fit. And as I say, it could be the case that you don't settle in the country, you maybe don't go on with people the way you thought you might have, maybe the training's too much for you, maybe you get unlucky with injuries. There's a number of factors, so it's not just being good enough isn't enough. It's there's a lot of things that have to work for transfers to be a success, and that's why the success of Ange's transfers is so impressive for me, because the sheer number of them, you're talking probably 90%, probably Abelgard, Ideguchi is probably the only ones that haven't worked at all, you would say. You have to make an assumption maybe McCarthy was ready on the way in before he came in.
Yeah.
That's incredible. To have that number of players from all over the world coming in, and incredibly, what we seem to know is an incredibly hard sort of training regime. The way we play is really fast and intense, and the demands are so strong, and yet they've all sort of worked. It's incredibly impressive, so long may it continue.
For sure. I do think McCarthy and Hart were probably, I say legacy signings, but Joe Hart has confirmed that Ange had the last say on the deal. So I'm reckoning they've been lined up, but Ange has obviously had that conversation. Joe Hart's spoken about it. The two boys coming in from Sheffield Wednesday, the deals were done. The players were coming in. I still think it's hilarious that Osaze Urigide started following us on Christmas Day, just to remind us, I think, that he does play right back. We were his one and only account on Twitter that he followed. He has since unfollowed us, but a big shout out to Urigide if you're watching. Lawrence, I think I know the answer to this, right? Who would you keep? Who do you think's got a future out of the three players we've mentioned?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Brian quite boringly, and it's Abelgard isn't our player. He was signed for a year. He'll go back to his team after that, if not before. I think we'd be happy to let him go back in January, especially as everything goes as expected on Monday. Mm-hmm. So, whereas McCarthy, he's at the end of his career. I can't see him wanting to leave Celtic. I can't see him wanting to go down to 3PL. I don't think that hold any appeal for him. He's on a decent wage with us. Part of that reason is, he came in a free transfer. So he counts as a homegrown player in terms of league player for Europe. So I think he's someone that will just see out his career with Celtic, and that'll be it at the end of that contract. That's it. Pretty bleak future by the sound that, playing a few games here and there, but I think he's happy with that. He's a Celtic fan. He's happy to be at Celtic. The other players, a lot of it comes down to they just couldn't dislodge who was in front of them. It's about how good the guys in the park have been playing.
Absolutely.
You're not getting a chance just because you're doing well in training. If the boys in the park are just relentless and churning out wins, it's kind of hard to get your foot into that position, isn't it? To get on the park. And when you do come on, you've really got to turn it on. I suppose that's one thing I've said about kind of recent subs. There's only Abada really been making that argument for starting. When they come off the bench and go, well, I can see why most of these are on the bench. Abada, I'm not too sure. He's really pressing it. I suppose before Abada, the only sub that was doing that was Jamesy. And now he's went from kind of, just the general squad to definite matchday squad, maybe starting now. So, yeah, after being written off by loads of players again, James Forrest has proven that, there's life in his legs yet, and he's got a lot to contribute.
Absolutely. I mean, we called him a legend on Acsom. It was the title. We called Jamesy Forrest a legend, and I stick with that. What was that, Lawrence?
Did you spell legend right? I just know some fans of some teams can't spell legend.
That's true. Talking of spelling, I see a quote on your T-shirt there, Lawrence. Share it with us.
Yeah. Do you not know how a picket line works? So it's in this sleeve, yeah. RMT, Mick Lynch.
Man of the year. There you go. Up there with Ange. Celtic follower, so will Iwata feature prominently in a number 6 role to strengthen us from counter-attacks? I hope so. Well, again, just like what Lawrence is saying there's going to be this competition for places that is unheralded. And I use the Martin O'Neill team as an example. Obviously, next year, I say we'll be celebrating the appearance in our 3rd European final. Seville was 20 years ago in May. But when you look at that team, when you look at the fact that Big John Hartson was injured for the game, and you look at the bench, it actually shows you that in terms of the deeper and the wider squad, Brian, that we didn't really have the depth that Ange Postecoglou's team's got. Now, I'm not saying Ange's team is better than Martin O'Neill's team. That's a great debate for a later podcast episode. But I would definitely say, in terms of the depth, we've got a much greater depth in this particular squad. We're going to get onto some of the other players, because one of the guys, I mean, actually two that have been briefly mentioned today, Matt O'Reilly and Jota. There's been times in their Celtic career where they have been absolutely undroppable. Yet we're going into the second derby of the season at Ibrox, 9 points ahead, the traditional New Year's Day game, albeit on the 2nd. And none of the two players are guaranteed a starting berth in the team. Such is the depth of the squad. Such is the quality of those players who are maybe second or third choices, even if Ange looks at it like that. But I want to start off by talking about Aaron Mooy, because, Brian, you quite rightly said the other night, I thought he was brilliant. I reckon it was his best performance in a Celtic jersey. He scores 2 goals. He gets off the mark, scoring his first goal. And I think that this follows a World Cup tournament that he really did impress. He was brilliant in the World Cup. Another one, like Jamesy Forrest, where people were asking when, obviously, Forrest signed his new contract, why we giving him a contract. People were questioning why we were giving Mooy a contract. I think he shut up a lot of his critics. He's 32 years of age, 57 caps for Australia. He's now made 24 appearances for Celtic. But the big question I'm going to ask you, Brian, and I'll come to you first, does he start at Ibrox on Monday?
Yes, I would. Just because I think if you look at how calm he is, so there's an argument for both, so I'll give you my argument for O'Reilly starting as well, but I do think Mooy will start ahead of him. I think it will be McGregor, Hatate, Mooy. The reason being, I think, we're likely to be under pressure at Ibrox at one point or another, because, we're playing at their ground, they're going to have moments where they're in control or attacking. He's great at just holding that composure. And he's a very different player from Rogic, but it's nice to have that calmness, that assuredness on the ball. While he's not the quickest, Mooy, he very rarely gives the ball away, and he's got a very good eye for a pass, and he can take the ball under pressure. He's not scared of a tackle either, so he can't put himself about, and I think he'll thrive in that atmosphere. So that's where I see him. I think O'Reilly will drop out, and it'll be Hatate, because he's got the legs to run about. And again, you spoke about it a number of times. Hatate's so unpredictable that you can't not play him, because there's times where he does things and you go, what are you doing that for? That doesn't work. And he does this spectacular pass or strike. I was saying the other day, I don't like when players are played that position. I think they should just play the normal position. He goes to right back, scores twice, gets man of the match. So there's never any evidence why I should be here and never in charge of a team. That's why. But that's why you also have to have in the team, because you don't know what he's going to give you, and your opponents don't know either. So I think he's definitely starting. I think McGregor has to start. He's been excellent since he came back, and you can see especially noticed in the Aberdeen game, he was determined not to lose, which is why he's such a good captain. If I was going to stay, my case for O'Reilly starting is, although I think he's a wee bit off the boil, he is an exceptional player. I still think he's going to be the superstar of the team. I think he'll go for the most money. I think he's got the most potential. And what I think he'll be really good at, he's really good at defending from the front as well. I think a really underrated part of his game is how much he wins the ball back from an attacking position.
Yeah.
I think he's very, very good at it. And I think that could be really important for us. So if either one of them starts, I'll be delighted. But I think it's Mooy.
No, and as you say, there is a case for both players to start. And that goes back to the point that we were making there, that, we do have the depth in the squad. Lawrence, I'm going to come to you as well. Aaron Mooy, I don't think, I can't say over the piece elsewhere what the view was on Mooy's signing, but in terms of Acsom and the contributors on here, I think there was a positivity about the signing. I think it was a slightly different buy, because he wasn't one of these guys that you were saying there, Lawrence, every player's a project player, you buy them in, you build them up, because of his age, because of the period of the career that he's at. He's a wee bit more like Joe Hart in terms of this could be maybe his last 2 or 3 seasons at this level, and then obviously whatever happens after that. So there was a difference there. He wasn't a marquee signing. He comes in free. And I just think slowly but surely he has won a lot of doubters over, to the point where at Easter Road the other night, Lawrence, there's Celtic fans are chanting his name. Does he start on Monday, though?
Well, I was a bit lucky. I was down at the Peter Scarf club listening to Chris Sutton saying when he signed the Mooy signed, and he just said, "Look, you just get a £6 million player for nothing." you know, well, why would you be down on him? And you know, I think he's been great for us. Does he start? I suppose it depends who they play at right back. It'll depend how many spaces there is in midfield.
Absolutely.
You know, Tati's just went in there and he's looked like the best right back in the club. You know, but you know, I'm a bit worried that clubs that are looking at Juranovic are now thinking, who's this Hatate fella? Because he's looked outstanding at right back. Hatate's not the quickest. You know, he's quick enough, certainly quicker than me. So I know Juranovic
is that the barometer that Ange uses now?
No.
Can he beat Lawrence in a 100-metre sprint?
No, it's probably can't beat Aaron Mooy in a 100-metre sprint. But no, we might play Juranovic just to get. I think he's quicker than Hatate, so we might look for that. But you know, Juranovic has struggled at Ibrox before. Maybe we had to switch Maeda over wings to give him a bit of hand out. So yeah, does he start? Depends who plays right back. Depends how many spaces are up for grabs in midfield. You know, I think Calmac definitely starts. If Hatate's at right back, it's easy to play Mooy and O'Reilly then, isn't it?
That takes us to another discussion then, talking about the right back, and we'll definitely get onto that. But I'm keen also to get some of the thoughts of the commenters coming in. 700 plus strong watching the 12:30 bulletin on this Friday afternoon, just as we move into a weekend of celebration, of community, of reflection as we move into the new year. Brian's giggling away there. Martin McGarrigle signing the Japanese Player of the Year as defensive midfielder. When you have a midfield that is chock full of talent as well as a settled system, it's a confusing signing to Martin. He's not replacing anyone. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he is going to directly replace anyone, but I think what he's doing is he's improving the depth of the squad that we've got. He's improving the options. I mean, once we start talking about the wings and the amount of options we now have down the left and right, Jamesy Forrest, an option. You know, at Ibrox, will he start? Who knows? Abada. Sometimes Ange Postecoglou surprises you with the inclusion or otherwise of Lil Abada. And on the left-hand side, you've got Jota, who is undoubtedly, for me, in terms of a game changer. He is that player who could do that for you. And before the World Cup, I think he was the best player of the season for Celtic. He's gone off the boil a wee bit, so he's no guaranteed to play. So do you play Maeda? Haksabanovic is going to be available. Unbelievable options. And I think what Ange is trying to do is have that comfort every single place on the park, which is the absolute opposite to what he walked into. You remember, you try to put a team together against Midtjylland for the second leg particularly. It was very, very difficult. So, you know, every single transfer window that Ange has operated in as a Celtic manager has made the team stronger. Now, there might be a counter-argument, Brian, for someone to come in and say, well, who's made the team stronger from the summer transfers other than the three players we already had in on loan and Maeda, Jota and Carter Vickers? Because obviously you've got Bernabe who's not playing, you've got Abelgar who's not playing, you've got Siegrist who's not playing, but they have improved the squad. They've improved the strength of your squad and the depth. And I think that the introduction of Iwata is one of those players. He's not going to walk into this team. And unless Juranovic is sold in January as expected, Johnson wouldn't be walking into this team either. And I think it's all about building a squad rather than just a team of 11 players.
Of course it is. I was giggling at that comment just because I see the guy's point, but players get injured. You can't just say we've got 11 players for every position and then that's it. Don't sign anybody else in case it upsets the apple cart. Because if players get injured, it's game over. I think you've seen that. What I would say about the players coming in, I think Bernabe has indirectly improved the squad because I think him coming in has improved Taylor. And I think Greg Taylor's probably been a player of the season this season. I think he's been consistently excellent. Really, really impressed with him. And I think that's because he knows if he drops his form, he's got somebody at his back that's going to play. Whereas the season prior, he didn't really have any competition. So I think that's been important. Siegrist we knew was going to be covered. I think Keeper knew was going to be covered. I think as long as Hart's fit, he plays. I think long term we will need a replacement for Hart because I do think at times when he's got the ball at his feet, sometimes I do panic a wee bit, I'll be honest. But I think in general he's he's been an incredible signing, and I think he's number one. And I think Haksabanovic he's been class. I think he's had a real. In fact, I actually like him when he plays as the kind of 10.
Yeah.
Somebody who can play through the middle. I think he's capable of really good stuff. A really exciting player. In terms of who starts up front, that's a real question, and they could be any number of front three, and they're all right and they're all wrong at the same time. So I think Juranovic will start at right back. I think he's come back. It's the last time to be in the shop window. I think he'll go for the confidence. I think if he knows it's his last game, probably, or one of his last games, he'll be determined to go out in a high. So I think he starts right back. But up front, I generally don't know. Because I was as you were talking about it, I was thinking, I'm going, well, Maeda was really good against Hibs, but is he the type of player you want at Ibrox? You go, Jota's class, but he's been off the boil. Abada's really, really good, but you don't know what you're getting with him. Haksabanovic hasn't played much. Forrest, people would go nuts, but I think I would, if I was picking, I'd pick Forrest and Jota, Kyogo up front, and I'd have Maeda and Abada off the bench.
Interesting, Brian. Very interesting.
Purely because I think Forrest has been really good anytime he's played this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ange knows exactly when to play him and what he offers. I think, because we're a bit of a question mark over right back, if Forrest is there, he will give you more defensively. Because he's slotted out wing back in the past, I think he'll offer you that. And I think just with Jota, I think he's got always that bit of imagination, that bit of creativity. As much as Maeda's a workhorse and he's in form,
yeah,
I still don't know that he's technically brilliant. He's not going to dazzle players. He's hard work. Whereas I think you need, if you're going to have hard work, say with Forrest starting, I think you need creativity on the other side.
That's a good point.
Starts up front.
That's a good point, that, Brian, because I was going to ask you there, right? Is it as simple as saying that in terms of defensive qualities, Forrest and Maeda are better on the wings defensively than Jota and Abada? Is it as simple enough to say that? But as you say there, you've also got to have the balance, haven't you? So you need the creativity. And I'm not saying Maeda and Forrest don't create, because they do. But in terms of the defensive element of their play, I would say that Forrest and Maeda are better. They do cover their fullbacks a lot better. I'm going to come back to a point Lawrence made in relation to right back, right? So let's say we're patiently sitting there on the first, having overcome a heavy head in the morning or whatever it is that you might be feeling on Sunday it will be. And you're checking your Twitter account and there it is. There's the announcement. Juranovic signs for any of these clubs that he's been linked to, be that Torino, Barcelona, Manchester United, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea. Then you're looking at Monday slightly differently. So Lawrence says that Hatate put in performances that made him think he was like the best right back at the club. I disagree. I think he put in performances that were great, but not in terms of a right back performance being great. And I rewatched the Hibs game, and defensively, I don't think he was sound, particularly in the first 25 minutes.
Is it Yulon got in behind us a lot?
Quite a bit. And I think that for the first 20 until we kind of weathered the storm, 25 minutes, I think he was a target. I do. I think Hibs were targeting him. And I think that would be the same on Monday. And I don't want Hatate to be hung out to dry at Ibrox because, it's easy to forget what that does to players. And the two examples I've mentioned previously, players that have really been hung out to dry, played out of position, was Johnson and Morgan against Rangers. I don't want that to happen to Hatate. I think if we've got a fit right back, and I'm hoping it is still Juranovic on Monday, by the way, then the fit right back plays. That's my kind of view on it, Lawrence. However, you've also got Johnson, who's been training with the side for a number of weeks now. Do you throw him in for his debut at Ibrox against Rangers in this powder keg fixture?
Well, the thing with Juranovic, whether he's sold or not, you wouldn't want him getting injured, because it looks like he's going to be sold this week. Nobody's going to buy him with a broken leg. So, not saying that's the tactics we might face, but
you might get yourself cut in glass in the box, sliding in for a challenge.
Listen, see, think about that. Obviously, member of staff getting hit in the head with the ball. Joe Hart, class in his penalty area. Scott Brown attacked in the park.
Battery thrown, yep.
Lee Griffiths. I'm just wondering what extra security measures the SFA, the SPFL, and the police and the Rangers are going to put in place to make it sure for our members of staff. Because we know, the ban Chris Sutton because they can't keep it safe for Chris. What they're going to do to make sure it's safe, or is this just something they're going to go, well, it's Ibrox and it's Celtic, so we don't change anything, we allow this kind of behaviour to continue. I think that the guy that attacked Scott Brown apart was returned to the stands, and Lee Griffiths was restrained by the referee.
That's right.
He's trying to go to help Scott, but the referee, rather than helping Scott Brown, restrains Lee Griffiths. Absolutely bizarre. And then the guy was returned to the stands. So, what extra measures are put in to protect our players and staff?
That's a good point. And you're not dragging something up from the distant past. I mean, we're talking about the last time we played at Ibrox here, Lawrence.
Yeah.
So, it's a relevant point. And I can only hope that both our staff, players and fans are all going to be safe on Monday. And if not, then this conversation will be highlighted again for sure. Well, some good points coming in. One from Facebook. I don't know who I'm speaking to, so apologies for that. There's a small kind of registration process if you're commenting on Facebook, so I can see your avatar and your name. Taking my nephew to the B team game, he's buzzing. It will be his first time at Paradise. It's a brilliant way to introduce them, I think, actually, taking them to the B team game. We'll be touching on the B team game, which kicks off at 2:00. We've actually got one of the Acsom contributors are there. He's in the press box, James McKenzie. He will be there, and he will be writing up a piece for Acsom.net, which is going to be resurrected. It's already there. It's live. There's about 600 articles on there. That's going to be resurrected in 2023. And the first article that's going to appear will be James's experience at the Celtic B game in Paradise. Now, Pedro Mac wondered if all the law was going to ruin everything clan. We'll be going back to their boxes now. 3 players signed before the window opens and roll. Listen, I remember saying it because Peter Lowell was announced during one of our bulletins, and then we followed that up. Certainly my take on this, Brian, was if Peter Lowell doesn't interfere with football matters, he's a great guy to have at the club. I mean, he's an absolute colossal force in terms of Scottish football, European football, and as long as there's no interference in football matters, superb. Yeah. I mean, somebody says, who else would you have as chairman? I've got somebody in mind that I think would be a fantastic chairman at Celtic. He's not a contributor to Acsom, I've got to say. But there are...
Not Kevin Graham.
Kev Graham would give them their money's worth, that's for sure. But when we were talking about this, my big question around Peter Lowell was the recruitment process. Lawrence knows a lot about recruitment. Who were the other candidates, Lawrence, that were identified? Were they interviewed? Was he the best candidate, as Desmond said? He said he was a prime candidate. And if that's the case, who else was interviewed? I'm not so sure.
But there's a difference between prime and best candidate. You need to spread your net. You can have a prime candidate before you begin your recruitment campaign. You can have a favourite there, thinking, he's got what we're looking for. But unless you have kind of a bit wider a campaign and actually look at what's out there in the market, how do you determine if he's the best available? It's kind of hard to do.
But yeah, I mean, I've not got a downer on Peter Lowell, certainly on a personal level. I think he's the work that he can do for Celtic will be massive. But in terms of recruitment, why interfere? It's working. And I think, the last 3, and I'm counting this one we're going into, the 3 transfer windows under Ange Postecoglou prove that it's working. We don't need the interference, Brian. So it's nothing personal. We just want Peter Lowell to do the chairman's job.
Well, I was in it was Laura Colin and I that were on the stream when the news broke. And I said at the time, I was, I think Peter Lowell's got an excellent legacy at Celtic. I realised when he overstepped his mark and interfered with player transfers and stuff and caused Ben Rodgers leave, there's a lot of controversy. But if you weigh it up, if you just look at it from a business point of view, he was excellent for the club. And I think you're right. He is an incredibly astute businessman. And coming back to the club, he knows if he's come back as chairman, he's no CEO. I don't think he's going to come in and start telling people what to do and all that stuff. I don't think he's going to get involved. But I think as chairman for the club, I think he'll be very strong. I think he's always got a good negotiator for us in the sort of European stage and the world stage. I think he's still got a lot of influence. So yeah, I was very positive about it at the time, but I did caveat it like you by saying, as long as he's just chairman, keep it that way, Pete, and we'll all be fine. And I
Listen,
don't know.
Brian, he should be involved though. He should be involved. He should be involved. He's conducted an awful lot of transfers. Who else has got that amount of transfer experience?
Not as a chairman.
Influence he has now.
Not as a chairman.
Influence he has on them.
I'm not
saying that he conducted it as a chairman, but if we look at a club to make the best use of experience we've got, if we're not asking them about transfers, how they're conducted, look at the selling clauses he put in for us. That are still going to make us money in the future. Some of the players they signed we sold for fortunes. There's definite experience there that we should be utilising. It's just how much influence and what say he's got on them that would be the worry. I wouldn't have him completely devoid from it. There's things that we can be asking them about transfers. And
I'm sure that's been happening. Sure, it's been happening, Lawrence, even before he returned.
So there are going to be conversations take place, but as long as I think he's going to trust his son. He said the recruitment scout. He's going to trust Nicholson, who's been excellent, and I don't imagine. I think Ange has got a huge sway over these are the guys I want. This can get to them basically, and I think Ange has been clever enough to sort of understand that we're not going to spend a crazy amount of money. So if he goes to want this guy for $8 million, he knows he's going to get told no, as he should, because that's no your stratosphere. So I think between that, I think and maybe indirectly Law will speak to his boy about it or have some input, but I think it'd be very minimal, and I'd be surprised if Nicholson, the City's hands, would be told what to do. So I don't see. I think Law being back's a good thing, but I don't see him getting involved. But I see your point, Lawrence. If he wasn't chairman, but if he's chairman, stays chairman, let him do his comment. But you might find there's like indirect conversations.
Well, he's got relationships with people throughout European football, isn't he? Some that I suppose are going to be better than others. And we should be utilising his experience, whether that's just going, look, this is the deal we've got, or before you go to meet that guy, listen, what's he like to deal with? You need to be plugging into that, and it might just be he's there to do the introductions. If he's got a particularly good relationship with people, listen, this is Michael, he's taking over.
It reminds me though.
This experience there.
It reminds me, Lawrence, if anybody ever read any of the Shankly books, what happened after Shankly left Liverpool, right? And he kept turning up for training, remember? Yeah. And, it got to the point where he had to get told, stop coming to Anfield. Now, that's cruel, right? But you need to move on. Now, the thing is, though, Lawrence, I don't doubt for a moment that we're already, tapping in to that knowledge base, that network, without a doubt. So whatever's been happening, that's fine because it's working right now. Let's just not interfere to the point where it stops working. I want to give Paul McGurk a big shout out. Afternoon, lads. Can you please give my nephew a shout? Young Callum. Callum, welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. And hopefully you have a phenomenal new year as well. Because
is Callum going to the game? Is it Paul that was taking his nephew to the game as well? If it is, enjoy the game.
Absolutely, yeah. The B-team game. I don't know what it's like around Parkhead Way, but certainly here in Dalkeith, it is bucketing down. It's bucketing down, Lawrence. Plenty more to discuss in relation to Celtic, all things Celtic. It's we're way up above 800 live watching on the channel, which is fantastic. There's a few things that we ask you to do if you're a fan of the Celtic State of Mind. First one you do is you like the video. Give us a big thumbs up because it helps with the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the channel. All you'll get is Celtic content, and we'll make sure that improves in terms of the regularity and the quality throughout 2023 as well. If you want to support the channel further, there's a few links underneath. You can buy merchandise, for example. You can come and see us live, Lawrence, live with Danny McGrain. What is that experience like, having Danny McGrain on a stage?
Daniel Fergus McGrain, the greatest footballer Scotland ever produced. Do you know, 1974, the best defender in the world when he was an undiagnosed diabetic. Yeah. No, even when he left Celtic, he dropped down a level, won the league with Ackies and was voted best player in that league. The man is a living legend.
He's a living legend. Yep.
And the stories, he was right through there from, I'm sure you know a bit about the College Street gang. You might even have a book about it. Yeah, but he was there right up until
ate a few boxes at Christmas as well. To be fair,
as a player, and then he's been back as a coach as well. I think he still does match day stuff. So, he's a lifetime in paradise for Danny, isn't it? The
you know,
story is great.
The thing I love as well, Lawrence, right? Because, yeah, his playing career has been astonishing. But he came back as a coach in 1997. So what he has seen, he came back for the stop in the 10 season, right? Under Wim Jansen. What he has seen since then until now, the managers he's worked under, unbelievable, the tales that Danny can tell and often does. So, yes, you can come and see me on a stage with Danny in March at Gracie's.
Sold out.
It's heading towards a sellout.
So be quick to get the tickets.
Be quick.
I think is a message.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Brian McClare one in January sold out quickly, as did Tommy Boyd, and we've got Danny lined up for March. More to be announced throughout the year. We want to get out. We want to see the whites of your eyes, shake your hand, get to meet you, and really just embrace the community that has kept Acsom going and growing for the last 2.5 years. If you want to support the birthplace of Celtic, there is a donation link underneath this video as well. And you can download The Glory and the Dream. That's a Celtic song that's going to be out there forevermore, raising cash for St. Mary's. So thanks everybody for getting involved at all times. We really appreciate it. I want to talk about Daizen Maeda because I'm sitting looking at his performance against Hibs, and I rewatched it yesterday morning so I could chat to JP about it. I think, again, like Mooy, it's his best on a Celtic jersey. They're the two World Cup boys that I think have come back with an increased energy. They've got a bit of confidence. They've got a bit of form. We don't know how it's going to affect Juranovic. The outcome of his World Cup might be that he's away. Carter Vickers, he only got one performance, but he played really, really well in the World Cup. But you look at Mooy, you look at Maeda, and I think there has been an injection of energy in both players. Maeda's goal was sublime, to use a very overused term when talking about a player or a goal. For me, contender for goal of the season. Ange comes out after the game, speaks about his work ethic, his attitude, these things that are so important to Ange Postecoglou, Brian, like we've mentioned. Does he start on the wing? This is a big question for Monday. Does he start on the wing?
It's so hard to say. As I say, I think if he starts, then you have to have someone more creative on the other side. So you might find it's Maeda and Jota, some combination like that. The question might be, and this might be controversial and a bit left field, but does he start up front? He started up front for Japan. He defended really well for the front. He's in form. I know Kyogo scored and it looked good, but Maeda was excellent. Maybe this is an argument that you've got Jota, Forrest, Maeda as your front three. Could that happen? I don't know. I don't know if I see it. I think Kyogo probably starts, but it's something to consider because he has been really good since he came back. What was interesting though was it was the two sides of Maeda, because as much as we're waxing lyrical about his performance, he did miss an absolute sitter just about a minute and a half before he scored the screamer. So there's what that
when he hit the bar.
Hit the bar, but he still missed it for point blank range. I mean, Aka scored it, I'm not. So
steady on, Brian. Stay on. Don't get carried away. Take it too far.
It gave a really good chance. The point is, he's still, my only criticism I made is he's maybe not the most clinical at times, but you can't. It's just as Ange said, you can't fault his ethic. I mean, the amount of ground he covers, the effort he puts in, the attitude is excellent. Mm-hmm. So if he does start, I think he'll start out left and Jota out right. I don't imagine a Bad will start and he'll start. I think it'll be one or the other.
There's so many of these options. By the way, I think he should have scored the header back. I totally agree with you, Brian. I'm just not sure you'd have scored it. But
You're right.
There's a few players on that park, and it all depends on whether others are fit. So the right back position is going to affect the selection in the midfield. And I think the same with regards to who plays out left. It all comes down, because I know that we've had a commenter saying that Greg Taylor has confirmed he's fit for Monday because you bumped into him at Braehead. That's fine. But if he wasn't fit and you're playing Bernabe, I think you play Maeda, because I think Maeda's defensive qualities are going to be needed then. So it all depends, Brian, on various other areas of the park. But again, that taps into this depth. And you look at the players that Ange is bringing in who can play 2 or 3 different positions. Our new arrival can play defence, he can play in midfield. And that's key. The adaptability is absolutely key. Lawrence, I've got a few more.
The only thing it depends is, see if Maeda's fit, he starts in Ange's team. That is it. I think on Monday, that's the only thing we'll wait to see. I think without doubt, Ange will start him on the left. Doesn't care who's left back. Maida's fit starts.
I think as well, see, the good thing of Maeda does start is one of their sort of strongest weapons is still Tavernier in terms of crossing and stuff. That is still one of their most effective attacking options. So if Maeda's there, in theory, he should nullify that and also be able to catch in the break. So I think you're probably right. I think, yeah, you've convinced me. So it'd be Maeda, and I think Jota.
Good to see Jota coming back.
No chance of Jota. Not from guys. I'm going to have Jamesy starting. We are bad coming off the bench. I think Jota's the least likely to start out the four.
We will revisit this conversation. I love this
chat. I love it.
David Fraser saw Danny, Davy Hay and McGrain at the Royal Concert Hall a few years ago. They were all great, but Danny was the best by distance. What a night that was, by the way.
It was great, wasn't it?
It was a brilliant night, yes. Absolutely.
I think you got a much used quote that night, didn't you?
I did. Aye, I certainly did. But I remember at the time, though, when Danny answered that question, because I'm thinking it's a bit of a woolly question, but there's people out there want to hear about, that Brendan Rodgers. Because bearing in mind, Brendan Rodgers was still something of a messiah at this time. He's still in a job. And we asked him the question about, what about what Brendan says about you when he was doing his book launch there with Eamon Holmes and that? And Danny was like, it was just nonsense. And he went on to explain what actually happened. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not putting this out there on Twitter. I'm going to leave it because obviously Danny's still employed with the club. Brendan Rodgers is still the manager. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, very, very good night. You're spot on when you say that. Kookaburra, Danny McGrain was my first Celtic hero. He's still a hero of mine. I remember Lawrence telling you about the first game I went to. It was 1987, Tommy Byrne's testimonial. And Danny McGrain had been freed during the pre-season and he never got a chance to say goodbye to the Celtic fans. And Tommy asked him to come on the pitch after the game against Liverpool and they did the lap of honour together. I don't know if they went right round the back. I do remember it, picking up scarves and all that. Tommy's shirt came off and everything else. I've been hearing it is taps off weather at Celtic Park, but God, I don't think so.
Talk about weather, that the boys in North America, Cleveland, Detroit, New York Freeman boys, all making out -16 to watch the games over the festive period.
Phenomenal.
It's phenomenal dedication. And then got me wondering why haven't they been using the same technology that they use in Scotland to control the temperatures? Because we've been using VAR to make sure it doesn't go any more than -9 Ibrox. It's just like bizarre.
Lawrence. Always there to throw a wee grenade. Brilliant. Willie D, is the B team game on Celtic TV? That's a good question, actually, because as I said, we've got James at the game. He's going to be in the press box. He was at the press conference yesterday with Darren O'Day. The B team, for me, it's a real good debate to have in relation to where we are with it, how it's improving or otherwise the players, but obviously what it's going to be in the future. And then it begs a question in relation to how we promote the B team as well, Brian. So there's been a big push for this game. It's at Celtic Park. We're playing Rangers, of course. And yeah, I think it is a good way to support the younger players. But you look at some of the women's games have been really, really well attended in recent times, not particularly by Celtic, by the way. I'm talking Hibs and Hearts. And there's incentives there with season ticket holders. So if you're a season ticket holder, you can go to that game today would be a better option, I would have suggested. And I think out of the 54,000 season ticket holders, say to them all, you can go to the game as part of your season ticket. That's what gets bums on seats. And then you see the product and then you can start buying into it. I don't think the B team was ever meant to be a money-making exercise. I think it was meant to develop footballers. So get the people into the stadium that way, Brian. I mean, whether or not it's on Celtic TV, I'll need to have a look at that, Willie. Let me know in the comment section if you're able to check that. I don't think it would be because they want people to be at the game. I think that's one of the reasons, if it's not on Celtic TV, why it wouldn't be. What's your thoughts on the way that the B team is going, Brian, and the way that we're marketing it, the way that we're able to sell that to fans?
Well, the way they're marketing it is very poor. Celtic, they just need a bit of joined up thinking for these things. The promotion of the women's game, the Celtic B team should always use the season tickets, be able to view readily. There should be sort of updates in the squad, who's doing well and stuff. There's not enough coverage of it. So I think Celtic's marketing needs to improve. Their communication needs to improve. around the women's team and the B squad. That just historically we're a bit far behind. In terms of the squad itself, I love the fact that you've got McManus and O'Day there. I love the fact that they're sort of training and playing the same style. It's the first team that seems to make sense. I said a number of times, I don't think there's enough quality there that we're going to see in a year or two loads of players coming through. But I think longer term, you will. I think if we keep this philosophy and we have this sort of almost future-proof in the club by making sure we're signing players to fit this system, and that's the system we're going to play, and there's a clear pathway. But that thing takes a lot of time, so I don't think we can especially judge it in terms of the product at this stage because it's in its infancy. It's a long-term thing. What I'm heartened about is that Vata got some game time against Hibs. I think it was a good show of faith for Ange. We had a discussion in the group chat, and I didn't expect him to come on. I thought he was probably going to use the time to showcase the players or give players minutes that might feature on Monday. And he might do that. It could be the case that Vata gets a cameo at Ibrox. But I think, if he's there and he's playing well, it shows that Ange will put them in. We saw it with Doak before he obviously went to Liverpool. He featured them in 3 games, so I don't think Ange cares what age they are, if they're good enough. And their attitude's good. So, if we get, if Vata becomes a first-team player over maybe next season, then that's brilliant. But I think it may be a while before we get this sort of conveyor belt we're looking for, which is nobody's fault. It's just that it's not been organised well until sort of
100%
structure. It's just
100%.
an issue.
But we've kind of been a victim, I think, in many ways of the Scottish game because, there was a system in place previously and Lawrence was well aware of it because he used to go to a lot of the games on a Friday night where we had a reserve league and there was numerous clubs who were no longer prepared to finance their second string in that reserve league. So, the rug in many ways is pulled under from Celtic's feet at that time. And I remember talking to the aforementioned Danny McGrain, who has been involved in the academy for a number of years as well. And he was talking about the fact that they were basically just setting up games with teams and it was very difficult, one-off games to try and get, games in players' legs so that they don't stagnate. And then there was a push to get the B teams into the league. That was first proposed by Jock Stein in 1968. And he cited other countries at the time who utilised the pyramid system. It took us until last season to actually do it. And it's going to take a few seasons and convincing the authorities and the other teams when it comes to votes that it's a good idea to allow promotion of these teams into the higher divisions. And obviously, you need to get there on merit. We started in the 5th tier, but only when we're in the championship do I think the transition is going to be there for the younger players to come through and step into the first team. And in the meantime, my view on it, my theory is you get nursery clubs, you get partnership clubs, and you, on a year-to-year basis, you loan out essentially 4 or 5 players from your academy to get game time at a club who shares our philosophy, who may be coached by someone who was at Celtic. I know we looked at it a couple of times. We looked at it, remember, when Willie McStay went over to Hungary, Lawrence, that was with a view to having players going over there to get game time. And Willie spoke about his frustration at the fact that I think he only got 2 players in the whole time he was over there that came in from Celtic. Then, and I know this, Peter Lawwell was in conversations with Dunfermline Athletic to use them a couple of years ago. Ross MacArthur and Peter Lawwell were talking about Celtic loaning the Pars players to get first team experience. Didn't happen. So it's one of these things. Lawrence, the B team are playing Rangers at 2:00 today. What's your view on the progression of that facility that we have there at Lennoxtown and how well it's producing players, but also the way that the club is marketing that and getting bums on seats?
Listen, I still call them the reserves. I suppose getting bums on seats, it doesn't help if I've got a fairly nomadic existence. Seem to be moving about. It's helped with more games at Celtic Park. You remember, we used to play at Celtic Park, and if the smaller games or midweek games would be up at Barrowfield. And if enough people turned up at Barrowfield, you'd get 10 minutes notice that the game had been moved to Celtic Park and kind of run down the road and get in. So I think moving back there, or moving back to doing that would be a lot better. Was it last year before, the club put out plans for a stand at Barrowfield? I don't, I think they were passed. I don't know if we're going to do anything with it, or if we're just putting that with the museum planning permission. Who knows? But I think getting back to Celtic Park and Barrowfield would help get people going back to see the games. It'd also help the club. You know, we've got the sports bar that they could open, Kerrydale Suite, you've got the superstore. It's the level they play at, you know, it's too low a level, so we need to do something to bridge the gap. You know, will it ever be as good as the reserves? You know, they had that benefit of getting players that have been out injured, picking up experience for playing alongside him. I don't know, but, you know, I think the reserve is gone, it's not coming back, so the B team it is, but I think it's getting them a defined home, you know, and I think that should be Celtic Park and Barrowfield if they go ahead with putting the stadium there, and I think they would get bigger crowds through that. And you touched on, you know, getting free season books. Well, Fergus McCann done that, if you remember. You also get free travel with your season book on match day, whether it was first team or the reserve team under Fergus, in the Strathclyde passenger transport area. So, you know, you used to get decent crowds at. I mean, I remember being a game on a Saturday, 36,000 for an Old Firm reserve game, you know, when there was such a thing. That is, as in such a thing as Reserve League and Old Firm. You know, but yeah, you know, biggest crowd in Britain. Arsenal were playing at home that day. Still, you know, I think Man United were home. They couldn't get the same size of crowds as the reserve fixture drew up here. So I think there's a definite appetite. But part of that's, you know, playing at Celtic Park or Barrowfield, getting in free for season boot holders would certainly help. What is it? Is that £10 today or something? You know, they could make it certainly cheaper. You know, kids get in for free would certainly help. You know, is the Hoop and the Huddle club still going? They should be contacting all those members come in for free. They need to do something. You know, Fergus tried a lot to kind of make the best use of assets. I don't know if we are in terms of Celtic Park. It lies empty a lot, doesn't it? So more reserve games there would be better. The Dessel pitch was meant to handle more games. I don't know. That's been utilised to the full in terms of that. You know, I know we don't have any more concerts at the ground. You'd have been at a few.
Oh yes.
So yeah, it's get it back to Celtic Park. More games at Celtic Park. Hopefully you utilise Barrowfield for the smaller games. And yeah, I think we'll start getting crowds back. And definitely, you know, give season book holders in free with your season book would help.
I agree with that. I think there's also an argument to say that not just at this time of the year, right, but let the homeless in, make sure that we actually engage with homeless charities in and around Glasgow and get the people in, and also allow them a heat and some hot soup and all that kind of stuff. I think that a club like Celtic could do that. They could appeal to minority groups all around Glasgow and the surrounding areas and get them into the games as well, and show some community spirit that way. And it's not about making money, is it? Because the seats are going to be empty.
St Mary's School, St Michael's School, the Sacred Heart, you know.
Yeah.
Invite the kids out.
The unemployed as well. You definitely could get people into that stadium today by doing it a different way. Frank Kennedy, we're about to close. Frank Kennedy watched the Three Kings documentary last night. Great watch. Yeah, it's still on. Is it Prime or Netflix? It's on Prime. Johnny Owen, friend of Acsom. Johnny Owen, good guy. And also, you know, the death of the passing of Edson Arantes de Nascimento, better known as Pele, was announced yesterday. And obviously there was a cloud over the world of football, an absolute legendary figure. Whenever, forever, there is a discussion about the greatest footballer of all time, Pele will be in that conversation. Some great pictures started to be posted on the social media of Pele with Paul McStay. There was one just last week, Pele with John Sludden, also dearly departed. So the wee links to Celtic are there as well. I've got to thank everybody for getting involved here. It's been tremendous. And as Brendan Monaghan says, Happy New Year, Acsom. Well, Happy New Year to you and everybody else who's tuned in. It's been 800 strong today on this Friday afternoon, where I've been joined by two of the long-term regulars in Brian Degnan and Lawrence Conley. All that's left for me to say is I hope everybody has a Happy New Year. We're going to continue with daily content. I've got a couple of pre-records that I'll put out over the weekend, and we'll be back on Monday for the game. Thanks everybody for getting involved, and have a great new year.
Happy New Year.